Here's a question. Do you guys think Colin Kaepernick ever plays again? Now, I'm a facts above feelings guy. I realize that Kaepernick wasn't viewed as an elite quarterback when he ultimately was out of the league. It's much more complicated than, well, he took a knee and so nobody wanted to sign him. Because Seattle brought him in for a meeting, and when he left, they had nothing but nice things to say about him, and they said he wants to be a starter. We have Russell Wilson. The translation there was like, either he wants a chance to compete or he wants starters' money, and I'm sure Russell Wilson probably called and said, what are you doing? I don't want this guy behind me. Why? Because that's what starting quarterbacks do. He screwed up the Baltimore thing, or his girlfriend screwed up the Baltimore thing, right? Where he was getting ready to go, and everybody thought he was going to sign with Baltimore. Ray Lewis went to Steve Bisciotti, the owner, and said, you need to sign this guy. And his girlfriend tweeted a meme of Ray Lewis and Bisciotti in court, and like side-by-side picture of Django Unchained, the slave owner, right? And Baltimore made sense because John Harbaugh is the coach. He played for Jim Harbaugh. And, oh, yeah, by the way, Greg Roman's the offense coordinator. He was his offense coordinator in San Francisco. Like, all of that made sense, and they screwed it up. Roman's style is unique, but they already have a former starter, former Pro Bowler as a backup in RG3, who's kind of rehabbed. And RG3, took on the I'll take no money, I'll just be a backup guy. I still think if, God forbid, Lamar Jackson got hurt, Cam Newton, maybe Colin Kaepernick, but probably Cam Newton. Like, I don't think that the NFL can do an about face. When you're an owner of an NFL team and you've helped as many players as Bisciotti has, and, guy's girlfriend tweets out that basically you're a slave owner racist, like that one, I think he's dead to Baltimore. And because there's no real other offshoots of what Greg Roman's doing, he doesn't necessarily have a rabbi in the room. But I'll tell you a place that might make sense. So the problem with bringing in Kaepernick is whoever your starter is, not coming in as a starter, whoever your starter is, like, Kaepernick's a thing. It would be press conferences, media, and there will be some sort of push for him to play. If you're not winning games or scoring enough points, there's like, hey, remember Colin? Now, those of us who know that Kaepernick had arm surgery, he had leg surgery, he wasn't nearly the same guy, and we're talking about he hasn't been an elite quarterback since 2013. It's 2020. That's 7 years ago. But that doesn't stop fans from thinking, and lots of starters wouldn't want him as their backup. Kansas City is the one place I could see it working. I mean, maybe even Houston, right? But Bill O'Brien's the GM. That seat is really hot. But no one wants to sit Deshaun Watson, right? There's no chance Deshaun Watson sits, just like there's no chance Pat Mahomes. Sitting behind Pat Mahomes makes the most sense. He's the best quarterback in the league. He's coached by a guy who can really help him. Additionally, like, if Kaepernick wants to play football, think of all the Andy Reid guys that are out there. Doug Peterson, Matt Nagy, Eric Bieniemy eventually will probably get a head coaching job this upcoming year. There are plenty of Andy Reid family guys that are in the National Football League as coaches that would give you an opportunity to get another job next year. And Andy Reid helped Mike Vick rehabilitate his career. So I think Kansas City would make the most sense. Of course, it would be bad news for Chad Henne. One-time starting quarterback who's the backup now making peanuts. Or pistachios, really. TJ, let's start with Roger Goodell, who basically did an about face and said, we were wrong, we're sorry. What, as a former player, what's your reaction to what the league offered up this weekend?
You can appreciate it. It's growth, obviously. When Cap did what he did, it was looked at as blasphemy, almost like, what are you doing? Are you kidding me? And he told us his message, and me and you have talked about this. And people didn't like the message. They didn't like that he didn't get out in front of it. And what has transpired, which is really unfortunate because a man loses his life, and it opens everyone's eyes to how African Americans have been treated, and this is exactly what Kaepernick was talking about. So for the NFL and Roger Goodell to come out and say what he said, and they're doing what they're doing, it's refreshing. It's maturity. It's always better late than never.
Why now? Why do you think?
Because of what's going on, and you see how just how popular social media is. When you get the best players in the league talking about this, the Mike Thomases, the face of the league, Patrick Mahomes, and then you get the quarterbacks involved who are very prominent. You get Brady say something, you get Aaron Rodgers that says something, you get Carson Wentz. Joe Burrow's a rookie, number one pick of the draft, and when he tweets what he tweeted, that starts to open people's eyes, and it says, because we're in a locker room together, if we can get you to understand our point of view, you'll never get the full understanding because you're not black. You don't know what it feels like to drive down the street and you see a sheriff behind you and you look in your rearview mirror 15, 20 times. Is he going to pull me over? Or you're driving and they see you and they hit a U-turn. Like, when you explain that to your teammates, they're like, oh, that doesn't happen to me. And that's all it is, an understanding of what we go through. And when we're in this locker room and you're with me and I can give you an understanding, and vice versa, it's not just a one-way street here. Once that starts to happen, the NFL has to take notice, and they have. And again, you would prefer them to do it late than never. I applaud them for it, and hopefully we see some change.
Doug Gottlieb Show here on Fox Sports Radio. Okay, so, I mean, my guess is what? The whole league takes a knee week one? Is that fair? Is that a best good guess?
That's going to be very interesting. I know Agent Peterson said that would be the case. I think everybody knows now that taking the knee has nothing to do with the military, has nothing to do with the flag. It has to do with the way black people have been oppressed and being treated. That message is loud and clear. That would be interesting, Doug. To answer that, I don't know. I would, if you asked me this today, I would probably say no.
Really?
I just don't. I don't see that happen. It's out there now. Like, they've acknowledged.
No, I get it.
Everyone,
like that.
I don't know.
I get it.
I don't know what that accomplishes. Now, if you get there's a thing to acknowledge it publicly, and we all know this. You were an athlete. You go into these meetings, and the coaches give you a different tune. And so, if that's the case, then yes. If it's genuine and it's league wide and they're serious about it, the players are going to sense that the teams and the coaches in front office are serious about this cause, and I don't see it happening. But if they get any hint of they're not all in 100%, because all they're going to do is get on the phone, the best players are going to get on the phone with the best players and like, this is what's going on with our team. Did you guys address this? No, we didn't talk about this. We talked about this. And so it kind of depends on how this goes once they reconvene and get back together.
Do you, Doug Gottlieb Show here on Fox Sports Radio, TJ Houshmandzadeh. There's been a lot of talk about whether or not race is involved in the National Football League. Do you believe that racism, like from your personal experience, did you ever see or feel racism in the league?
I wouldn't say I felt it. You see it, and I'll give you an example. And this was a narrative, and he was drafted very high. It was for years and years and years. The black quarterback couldn't play because he wasn't smart enough. That's the truth. That was.
Yeah, but that was like truth. when we were kids.
No. When I got to the Bengals, they had drafted Achilles Smith.
Yeah,
and he wasn't smart enough, and so that's racism. But did I actually see it?
But wait, hold on. This is an important discussion to have because we're friends, and I really respect your opinion. Okay, a guy cannot be smart enough, but not be because he's black. He can just not like. But it was like Tim.
That was just the narrative. Of course, it's not just black quarterbacks, but it was more towards the black quarterback. That obviously, it's no question it's changed.
Yes.
But when I came into the league, did I see racism? I'll tell you straight up. I'll say no. And I'll say no because I was oblivious to it. I wasn't paying attention to it.
Right.
And so it wasn't something that was on my radar. It wasn't something that I was cognizant of because it wasn't it wasn't of importance to me because it was, and that's ignorant on my part, but you kind of just, you go to meetings, you go to practice, in off season, you're just trying to get better. And so you don't really pay attention to it because the awareness wasn't there. And so when you look back on it, you say, maybe possible. But at the time, no, because it wasn't something that was talked about openly, and it wasn't something that was really talked about at very, very much, if at all.
Yeah. No, I mean, like I just think the world of athletics is so different than the rest of the world, right? It just is, and that's I'm with you. Maybe it existed when I was in college or when I played. I just I so didn't pay attention to it because it wasn't part of my life, or I just, especially as a white dude, you can't survive. I don't think you could survive at least in basketball, and I doubt in football, if you're a racist. Like how do you function? And I don't know.
Impossible, man.
I mean,
it's impossible. And again, I was one of the few guys on the team that I can go out with the receivers, the DBs, but I can also go chill with the O linemen. I had that reach to where I could reach everybody in the locker room. It didn't matter your race. It didn't matter the position. It didn't matter your background. Now, there were some guys in the locker room that couldn't do that, but I wasn't one of those. I always was able to reach and communicate and have conversations with every single player in that locker room. And everybody I played with, if they listen to this, they will say, yeah, he's right. He's not lying at all. Yeah. Because I'm a people person. And again, it's very tough for somebody to be racist in a locker room. You will get found out very quick, or you're doing a great job of hiding it.
Okay, what happens to Brees?
It's going to be interesting. The apology, in my opinion, was PR. He had to do that. Now, he might in his heart feel he made a mistake. I don't know Drew Brees personally. It's going to take some time. It's going to take some just understanding of the guys in that locker room to see if what he's saying is genuine and he comes off like it could be. But you got to show me. And it's going to be a ton of guys that they're just never going to go all in with Brees because of that comment. You made that comment at the height of this when you had years to think about what would your response be. And that's the response that you give in the climate that we're in. And so there's going to be a ton of people that say, nah, bruh, because you said this at this time. And so it's going to be very interesting. They better get off to a great start.
It's interesting because I felt like it was the opening sentence, really. I will never agree with was really because this is what the flag means to me. You're allowed to think that way. It was the lack of empathy and the tone deafness to that first sentence, which really put everybody in the defensive. No,
100%. And if you listen to, nobody is kneeling because of the flag. They're kneeling because of the oppressed black people in this country. And he goes on to speak about his grandfather, and then you have others who have. Well, my grandfathers, they served in the military as well. When they came home, they didn't have the same rights and liberty that your grandfather. So that's what we're talking about. And he knew this before the comment was made. Before he made his comment, he knew all this existed. And so now why, in turn, would he say that? And that's the uphill battle he's going to face in that locker room. And what do you think? You don't think a defensive lineman will take a 15-yard penalty just to hit him late, just to prove a point to him? He's going to face that this season, and they're going to have to protect him, or it's going to be teammates defending him, and that will be interesting. If that happens, you know how the offensive line, they always go to fight when their quarterback gets hit late. It'll be interesting to see if that takes place, if that is the case with Brees this year.
Do you think Colin Kaepernick plays again in the National Football League?
Wow, no, I don't believe so. It's been 4 years. If a team signs him, athletically, he can play. Doug, people don't understand, man. You can train, you can practice all you want. If your eyes aren't programmed and trained to be reading defenses at the pace that it needs to be, that's a skill within itself. Like, your mind has to be able to operate and be trained and move quickly. He hasn't done it in so many years. If he is given an opportunity, I don't know how well it will be. They'll have to be very patient with him. Be patient with him. Don't rush him out there. Understand the situation he's in and what he's been in. But to answer that question, I'd probably say no.
Yeah, I mean, like, look, he's not going to be signed to be a starter, which kind of goes into what part of the problem is, right? You have a backup who's kind of the starter, the guy who's known for this massive movement, worldwide movement. I have a team I think it would work. You ready for it?
I'm listening.
Kansas City Chiefs. Let me sell you on. Let me sell you on it for a second, okay?
No, you ain't have to tell me. You're not playing in front of Mahomes, so that's number one.
Right.
You know your position.
Right.
Oh, and you can go with Andy Reid and learn a ton of football and really get your eyes, quote unquote, up to speed.
And Andy Reid had Mike Vick, right? Now look, again, and I know that Colin Kaepernick has committed no crime and spent no time in jail. Please don't anybody think, oh, you're making him out to be a criminal. I'm not. I'm just talking about when Mike Vick came back, he was wildly unpopular. Okay. There's still, and here's where I would disagree with you in terms of the flag. I understand why some were kneeling. I get it. I'm telling you though, there is a portion of our population that they link the flag to patriotism and all that America's about, and it's the time that you're supposed to stand up. So again, there will be a portion of fans that won't like him, just like there are a portion of fans that didn't like Mike Vick. There's a portion of fans that love Mike Vick no matter what he did when he was in Atlanta. Kansas City Chiefs. Chad Henne's their backup.
And also, think about this with the Kansas City Chiefs. I'm going to give you another layer to that. Eric Bieniemy could possibly be a head coach. If he likes what he sees out of Kaepernick, he can go sit for however long it takes Bieniemy to get a job.
Sure.
And if he impresses Bieniemy enough, that can be a starting quarterback. I mean, there's just so many different ways you can go about this. But, I mean, that's a great landing spot if it happens. I'm not 100% certain you see it. But Cap was on to something. And me and you discussed this before. He didn't lead how people wanted him to lead, but he was on to something.